Welcome back to the classroom. In the last lesson, we talked about how to build a deep understanding of your buyers and their story. So now I'm going to show you how to use that information to reach your buyers consistently, to close sales, and to create a fan base that markets and sells your work on your behalf without you having to do anything. A lot of marketers make decisions on where to market their work based on what's popular. They go to social media because that's where everybody is. That's where other sellers are. They create a newsletter because they see news about growth in newsletters and a return to that as a format. But in Tool 2, you built a more powerful foundation to decide where to market based on understanding of your unique customer. Tool 2 teaches you where your buyers go. The best way to reach them is to just show up there. If your buyers told you that they buy work at art festivals, you go to art festivals. If they tell you they search for work on TikTok, you go to TikTok. The point is, your decisions about sales and marketing should be driven by what your buyers told you, by your understanding of them, not by what everyone else is doing. It's an opportunity to stand out and to really connect with the buyers who would buy your work. So this lesson has 3 goals. First, I'm going to show you how to apply tools 1 and 2 in the wild, because good marketing and sales isn't just about showing up where your buyers are. It's about connecting with them on shared experiences, shared mission, and shared values, the things that you described about yourself in your artist story in Tool 1. After that, you're going to learn a framework to optimize sales and marketing, to get started with it, and to get better at it over time. And then finally, I'll show you how to apply all of that in the Creative Build workspace. So let's start by bringing everything in Tool 1 and 2 together. You have an artist story, and you spent time on that in Tool 1. In the Tool 2 lesson, you learned that your buyers also have a story. And I introduced this framework that shows that marketing is just orchestrating connections with your customers based on shared experiences, values, and mission. And the goal is for your stories to intertwine after a purchase, for them to become not just customers to manage, but lifelong fans. So how do you do that? Sales and marketing are just knowing where your buyers are in your story, orchestrating connections with them there, inviting them to deepen their relationship with you, and inviting them to buy from you and to recommend you to friends and family. How you accomplish these 4 things depends on your story and your buyer's story. Sales and marketing are extra important to your business. They're what provide the financial return. They're what help you achieve your financial goals as a business founder. That means they get their own experimental framework. That framework is called a sales funnel. And in Tool 3, you're going to build your own sales funnels. And you're going to work to grow them and to get better at them over time through experimentation. But you've already learned what the basics of a sales funnel look like. In the last lesson, and in Tool 2, you described your buyer's story: awareness, consideration, decision, retention, and advocacy. Those are the same 5 steps in a sales funnel. The sales funnel simply applies these 5 acts into a useful format that you can build a sales and marketing plan around. Knowing where your buyers are and what they're thinking at each stage allows you to tailor your marketing and sales to that moment. The reason it's called a funnel is because not all buyers make it through. Not everyone who's aware of a problem decides to do anything about it. And not everyone who's considering different ways to solve that problem will choose your category of art. Not everyone who's deciding who to buy from will buy your work specifically. Not everyone who buys your work will buy it again. And not everyone who buys your work more than once will tell their friends and family about it. So optimization of your sales funnel includes measuring conversion rates at each of these steps. So you have tailored marketing and sales activities at each step based on what your buyers are thinking and doing in that moment. Your goal is to move as many of them as possible from one step to the next, and conversion rate measures the success at which you're able to do that. So the sales funnel is an experimental framework with measurements that tell you how successful you are at marketing and selling to your buyers. Let's go back to our example from the Tool 2 lesson. I introduced an overwhelmed buyer named Janelle who ended up discovering and buying fantasy novels. Let's tie that story to a fantasy novelist named Andy, who writes for women like Janelle. And let's see what a marketing and sales plan for Andy might look like that takes advantage of Andy's understanding of Janelle's story through each of the 5 acts. In Act 1, Janelle becomes aware that her overwhelm is impacting her relationship with her daughter. It's making her too tired to play with her. And that's something she and her daughter love to do. So Andy might create funny content about her own struggle as a single mom to help lighten the situation for Janelle, but also to maybe become noticed as somebody that Janelle can connect with based on a shared experience of being a mom and having difficulty cultivating a relationship with her daughter based on everything else that's going on in the world. That's the awareness phase. In Act 2, Janelle takes a sick day to help deal with the overwhelm, but then she discovers another way through a friend, fantasy novels. And maybe Janelle remembers, I recently discovered a fantasy novelist. Her friend mentions the same novelist. It's Andy, because Andy has built a community of fans who bring new people in. Janelle's friend just happens to be part of that community. So Janelle decides she's going to buy a fantasy novel. But while our story in the last lesson was passive, where discovery of a fantasy novelist happens in Act 3, you can see how Andy's orchestration of discovery made it happen much sooner than Act 3. Janelle's already discovered Andy, and during the shopping experience, Andy uses reviews from other single moms in her marketing activities to drive the decision to buy. So Janelle buys and becomes immersed, a repeat buyer, because she has to keep up this habit of nightly reading so she can have a good night's sleep. So at the end of every novel, Andy recommends what to read next. She's helping Janelle continue to deal with the overwhelm through her nightly reading. And Janelle becomes a fan. She buys more, and she becomes part of that community that I described. So when her friend Robin is dealing with the same issue she did, she's proud to tell Robin about Andy and how much Andy's helped her and what she gets from Andy, like exclusive drops. So you can see how this ties back to our Tool 2 lesson. Andy is tying her marketing and sales activities to her understanding of Janelle's story and to the universal themes that exist among women like Janelle. But what Andy's also done here ties back to something I said in the Tool 1 lesson, that your brand is an outcome of experiences, and that brand marketing isn't visual design, it's experience design. What Andy has done is designed a brand experience around her customer. That's what it looks like. The experience she's designed meets Janelle where she is at each act, leaves Janelle feeling heard and understood and wanting more, and welcomes her to go deeper in their relationship and to recommend her because of the memorable experience that Andy's delivered. That's strong brand marketing. And with a good foundation of your own story and an understanding of your buyer's story, you can do the same thing. But Andy probably didn't get to this point by guessing. You get there by experimenting. So here's what an experiment might look like for Andy as she's building her brand experience for Janelle. At some point, Andy thought that a fan community would grow sales. And so she devised an experiment to build a Discord community of fans as an important part of her offering. She's not just selling novels, she's selling community. She decided her success signal was repeat purchases of her work. And through experimentation, she learned that the average sale per person grew 25%. That solidified her hypothesis that connection drives buying behavior within her fan group. And so Andy decided to find other ways to connect buyers with one another beyond just a Discord group. So that's the lesson. Now, let's look at how to apply it and to build your own experiences, your sales funnels in Tool 3. Here's the Tool 3 page. You get here by clicking the Tool 3 tile at the top, and you'll see the familiar opening here. We have information to get you in the mindset to build your sales funnels, to reach your buyers, and then we have instructions over here on the left. Now, Tool 3 starts with a reach audit. It takes what you learned from your buyers in Tool 2, and it asks the question, are you already showing up where they are? If you're just building a business and you haven't started marketing or selling your work, the answer is going to be no across all of these. What this section does is it helps you understand the biggest opportunities to connect with your buyers at each stage, at each act in their story. You're describing what you've learned about where your buyers are at each act, and you're describing where you show up now. And the outcome is to find gaps between those two columns, where your buyers are and where you show up in their story. That analysis becomes a foundation for building your initial sales funnel, which is the next section. This is what the sales funnel looks like. Sales funnel just describes where they are, the location. Now, this could be a digital location or it could be a physical location. Digital locations could be social media. It could be a third-party sales site like eBay or Etsy. It could be your own website or an email list. Physical locations could be shows, could be local businesses, could be galleries, could be events. The point is to capture where your buyers told you they go at each act in their story. I also want to capture in the sales funnel a little bit about what you know beyond just where they are. So the second column, I want you to describe what they're thinking in this moment. How are they making the decision? What's influencing them to move to the next step? It's not just about should I move to the next step, but also what are they wrestling with that might or might not get them to make that choice. And then once you understand those two things, where they are and what they're thinking, maybe what they're feeling, you can then land on how you're going to influence them in that moment. What's your content going to look like? What type of a program are you going to create for them? How does your offer show up and convince them to move to the next step? Once you've filled in this entire table, you have a plan for one sales funnel. And you can build multiple funnels. Their buying story might have them looking in different places, but an individual sales funnel describes that 5-act story with one place in each act to keep it simple. So if you've never done this before, I recommend you start with just one sales funnel. Understand how funnels work, understand how to measure conversion rates, and get good at it. And then add a second funnel, and then maybe a third. The problem with having too many funnels at once is you can't get good at any one of them. When you are ready to add another funnel, you can add them here. And when you have multiple funnels to look at, they show up in the next section, the Managing Sales Funnels table. Anytime you add a sales funnel, it'll show up as planned here. You can change the status to building, active, or paused. And you can edit the details and even delete them here. This helps you see all your funnels in one space so you understand the work that it takes to manage everything. The last section, like every other tool, is the action card section. So once you've done the analysis, you probably have some work to do. And this is where you can capture action cards that will automatically go into your plan for prioritization. Finally, like every tool, you can share the work that you've done with your advisors from here. This will auto-populate. You can edit the message and then send it to them from here. So that's how to reach your buyers, how to get good at reaching your buyers based on your story and based on their story, how to orchestrate the connection between the two of you, how to build a brand experience, and how to get better at it over time. Once you've done that work, you're in a stronger position than a lot of career marketers, because you have an authentic brand experience you've created based on your real story. You have an understanding of your buyers that rivals most businesses, and you've connected the two, chosen your sales and marketing tactics based on that connection. That's what world-class sales and marketing looks like. It also sets you up for the next tool and the next lesson, which is about pricing, because the foundation you've built with your brand, your buyer, and reaching your buyer lays the groundwork for higher pricing than you might think you can achieve.